Pause recording. Welcome to Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Today we're covering Genesis chapter 33. There are 20 verses. And before I begin, I want to expand on what I mentioned yesterday. I alluded to why did Esau not kill Jacob? Because we know Esau was determined to kill Jacob, and he wasn't turning away from his mission. But we see in the book of Jasher, it gives us a little more information regarding why that was so. So in Jasher 32, it describes, just like it does in Genesis, how Jacob sent a message to Esau saying, my lord Esau, let not my lord imagine that my father's blessing with which he did bless me has proved beneficial to me. Basically, he's telling him that, I'm giving you gifts to appease you, to propitiate your countenance, I think was how it was worded. And they relay this message to Esau. These are the messengers of Jacob. And what did they return to Jacob with? They told him, Esau returned the message to Jacob that he's not going to listen to your words. Instead, he's going to meet you with 400 men with drawn swords. So he's going to come in basically with an army of men who's going to kill you. That was his response. Because, well, why is that? Because he was fed information by Laban, and it's mentioned in Jasher as to the details. Laban said that Jacob took advantage of me. He took all my goods. So Esau listened to Laban, and that's why, he was already set on killing his brother, but this only adds fuel to his fire. So that's one detail that is mentioned here in 32 of Jasher, chapter 32. I'm going to look at some more in a moment. And we read here that, continuing on, it says, Jacob prayed to Elohim, to Jehovah Elohim. He said, deliver me, I pray you, from the hands of my brother Esau, for I am greatly afraid of him. And we can also read that in Genesis. He was afraid for his life. He reminded God of the promises he made to Abraham, to Isaac, and that those promises extend to him also. So what he did, as we read in Genesis, he divided the camps. He divided his wives and the children into separate camps so that in case he killed them, he wouldn't kill them all at the same time. He divided the horses, he divided supplies, and he also did it in a way so as to give him gifts, little by little. And it says here that God heard the prayer of Jacob on that day, and he sent 3 angels of heaven. This is from Jasher. It says, the angels appeared to Esau and his people as 2,000 men riding upon horses, furnished with all sorts of war instruments. And they appeared in the sight of Esau and all his men to be divided into 4 camps with 4 chiefs to them. So they saw one camp went on, they found Esau. Okay, so essentially they saw these armies coming, and it says Esau and his people were terrified of them. These armies coming to them that appeared like 2,000 men riding on horses. And all his men separated from him in that place. They were greatly afraid. So that's the detail that we're missing. But it also mentions this very same hosts of angels in the beginning of Genesis. It says Jacob saw hosts of angels. So he called that place encampments. But in Genesis, it doesn't tell you what they were doing. It just says they were there and he noticed them. But here in Jasher tells you what they did. They put the fear of God literally into Esau so that he wouldn't kill his brother. So that's the detail we're missing, because nothing in the Bible is ever there by accident. Even the smallest detail, like I said, it's there for a reason. And here we're given the full picture of why the angels were there. What purpose did they serve? Simply being there and appearing like a decoration? No, they were there to protect Jacob. And we also read that in the Septuagint. It says that Esau asked them, we're going to read that later on, why, what are these bands? What are these camps to you? Or these groups of people? We're also given an important detail. Esau spoke with these angels who appeared as men, and they answered Esau. They said, "We are the servants of Jacob, who is the servant of God, and who can stand against us?" And then Esau replied, "Oh, then, my lord and brother Jacob is your lord, whom I have not seen for 20 years, and now I have this day come to see him. Do you treat me in this way?" And then the angels answered him, "As the Lord lives, were not Jacob, of whom you speak, your brother? We had not left one remaining from you and your people. So we would have killed you all. But because Jacob's your brother, because of Jacob, we will do nothing to you. We won't hurt you." So that happened not just once, this happens 3 times. So Esau is already scared at the first appearance of the initial army, but then he sees 3 waves. I mean, it's enough just to see 1 wave, but 3, now he's really careful because he knows if he says the wrong thing, if he does the wrong thing, he's a dead man. So he's got to be careful. And that explains why Esau changed his heart, because otherwise, money can only go so far. You can only bribe someone enough, but we know Esau was dead set on killing his brother. But when someone is afraid for their life, they want to save their own life, they'll do anything, even, turn their anger away. So that gives us more information there. Okay, here's the verse. It says, Esau concealed his hatred against Jacob because he was afraid of his life on account of his brother Jacob. And he imagined, excuse me, he imagined that the 4 camps that he had lighted upon were Jacob's servants. However, we read in this account, Jacob has no idea that God did this for him. He simply prayed to God to protect him, and he divided the camps, just like it says in Genesis, but he had no idea that God had done this and provided this divine protection for him and scared his brother in this way. Okay, the plot thickens. It says here in verse 55, the fear of Jacob and his terror fell upon his brother Esau, for Esau was greatly afraid of Jacob for what the angels of God had done to Esau. And Esau's anger against Jacob was turned into kindness. So we see that this is confirmed in Genesis when it says in the next verse here, Esau saw Jacob running toward him. He also ran toward him and he embraced him and he fell upon his neck and they kissed and they wept. And that's how God put the fear and kindness toward Jacob in the hearts of the men that came with Esau. So it wasn't just Esau that did this, it was also even his army also did likewise, and they also embraced him, it says here. And he also brought his sons with him, and they did likewise. They also embraced their uncle. Okay, so we see here that the camps that Esau witnessed, the armies of the angels who he perceived as men, Esau asked him about it. It says here in the book of Jasher, it says there in Genesis as well, what are these camps? What is the purpose of this that I saw yesterday and today? And Jacob said, this is what God gave graciously to your servant. So Jacob doesn't know what he's talking about. He thinks he's talking about all the supplies, all the gifts he's giving to him, but Esau actually meant the armies. So it's interesting that you have this kind of inside joke that's happening here where Jacob is completely unaware of what happened, where Esau he's hinting at it, but he didn't explicitly say it's the armies. He just said, what are these camps? What are these big groups of people? So that's what happened there. That's the full account of what I alluded to yesterday. Now we're going to look at Genesis 33 to complete the story now. In verse 8, it says here, Is Esau speaking, what are these things to you? All these companies that I have met. That's in the Septuagint. The Masoretic says, what do you mean by all this drove which I met? So it's very similar in terms of the way it's worded. However, uh, Esau is more specific in the Septuagint, saying, what are these things to you? To you, Jacob, all these companies, all these groups of people that I have met, as opposed to what do you mean by all this drove? Drove could just mean supplies, could mean the group as well, but I think it's a little more specific in the Septuagint. Verse 11 it says, Jacob says, "I have all things." This is where he's urging Esau to take these things I'm giving to you as gifts. I have all things. The Masoretic says, because I have enough. So he words it differently. Instead of saying I have all things, Masoretic is saying I have enough. But either way, God provided the things he needs. Verse 17 says that Jacob departed to his tents, and he made for himself there habitations. And for his cattle he made booths. Therefore he called the name of that place Booths. The Masoretic, it says, Jacob journeyed to Sukkoth, which means tents, and he built him a house. And, okay, well, a house is different than habitations. And he made booths for his cattle. That's the same. Therefore, the name of that place is called Sukkoth, which also means booths. But you can see there's a distinction here between him making a house versus habitations. House is singular, habitations is plural, and it also says he built tents. So a tent, I think when you think of house, you think of a structure that is permanent, usually made of stone, not like a tent that you set up temporarily. Verse 19 reads that Jacob bought this field from Shechem for the price of 100 lambs. So baby sheep, he paid with lambs. And the Masoretic, it says he bought them for 100 pieces of money. So I'd say that's a big difference there. Instead of money, he paid with livestock. And then verse 20, last thing we're going to look at, it says here, Jacob set up an altar and called on the God of Israel, the Elohim of Israel. So he called on the name of the God of Israel. The Masoretic says he erected an altar and called it, the altar, El Elohe Israel. So you can see the difference. He's calling the altar that. He's naming it that. Or in the Septuagint, it says that he called on the God of Israel. He didn't just name it that. He actually is calling on the God of his father, Abraham and Isaac, God of his fathers. So that's all I have to say for today on this chapter, Genesis 33. Thank you for your time. May Jehovah bless you and make your way prosperous. Till next episode, we'll look at Genesis chapter 34. This is Jack Knight for Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. 3.